We'll talk. I'll text you.
Okay, we are live. Welcome back, everyone, to the Health Committee on General Housing. Would you like to introduce yourselves to our witnesses, and then you guys can tell us who you are and take it away.
All right, I am Emily Krasnow and I serve South Burlington, Chittenden 9.
Representative Claudia Lamont, representing the Washington District, Morristown, Elmore, Worcester, Woodbury, and Small Portage Bay.
I'm Mary Howard. I represent Rutland City District 6.
I'm Debbie Dolgan. I represent St. Johnsbury, Kirby, and Concord.
I'm Charles, represent Athens, Chester, Grafton, and Linden.
Joe Parsons, I represent Groton, Thompson, and Newbury.
Leonora Dodge, nice to see you, Essex Town and the city of Essex Junction.
Ashley Bartley, Fairfax, Georgia.
Hi, apologies. I'm Elizabeth Burrows and I represent Windsor 1, Heartland, West Windsor, and Windsor.
Gail Tesla, and I represent Chittenden 20, Colchester.
And I'm Mark Mahoney, I represent Callis, Plainfield, Marshfield. Welcome. Please state your names for the record and take it away.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Nice to meet all of you, if we haven't met before. Charlie Baker, I'm the Executive Director of the Chittenden County RPC during the day, but then in our state association, also Secretary, Treasurer, and some other stuff.
I'm Catherine Dimitrick. I'm the Executive Director of Northwest Regional Planning Commission. We serve Franklin and Grand Isle counties. And I always like to proudly note that I grew up in South Reigate. So when I heard Groton,
And Christian Meyer, I'm the Director of the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission, where Washington County plus 3 towns in Orange County, Washington, Williamstown, and Orange. And saying where we grew up, I grew up in Callis, so not too far.
It must be great.
And others. So what we wanted to do today was really just introduce you to the RPCs and the work that we do. And, so obviously some of it touches on housing. And so, happy to dive down deeper into that topic. And, if we need to come back and get deeper into it, happy to do that as well.
Also, VAPCA, what is,
So
what it is, how active it is.
It's really the state association of the RPCs. It's the Vermont Association of Planning and Development Agencies is the technical legal name. And it's just a way, so we get together monthly, our staff all get together on all these topics that we work on as needed to get work done.
And it's really the method that we use to make sure that we had coordinated, collaborative, statewide approach to the work that each of the 11 regional planning commissions are doing.
Good, and just a quick outline of what we'll cover, introduction, kind of accountability, funding, state policy, and then the last one, there's a lot RPC programs, which probably could say state programs also, because almost all of these are rooted in legislative action somewhere. Sorry, I need to get this. I can't quite see my slides. So we provide staff support and technical assistance to towns in the state. The legislature created us in 1968, I think, is when we got into statute to really fill that gap. We don't have county government in Vermont, so we play the role of connecting municipalities and towns with federal and state programs and dollars, as well as provide a forum for towns to discuss and provide services jointly. We are political subdivisions of the state. We are government agencies and provide broad services to every Vermont municipality.
Did you all hear that? It's strange, isn't it? They are subdivisions of the state. That is, they're not just they're not state agencies, they're not nonprofits, they are subdivisions of the state, as in.
No, we're not.
They're not, they aren't.
Not part of the executive branch.
We're quasi.
They're like a town.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, like GMT.
Yeah, it could be like that if the legislature created it. Yeah.
That was created through charter, so a little different too. There's a lot of government instrumentalities in Vermont.
But you don't have, each of you is an instrument, each of you is right, and you're governed by.
Yeah, I would love to
Who
get
governs you?
I would love to get to that slide, sorry. Presentation was not 2 slides. So this is just to give you a sense of the breadth of topics that we work on. Transportation planning, land use planning, water quality, hazard mitigation, emergency preparedness, housing, brownfields, economic development, energy, and technical assistance on all these things. And, oh, I must have skipped over. Sorry, this is really fighting me. I apologize. Is anybody else having this trouble? There we go. Okay, quick highlights. So there's a map. You can see kind of how we cover the entire state. All municipalities are members, 11 RPCs. Right now we have about 135 staff. So you, in a way, sometimes we think like it is almost a state agency. We cover, and this I just got off the interwebs. So if you want to argue about the numbers, I don't want to argue about the numbers. Somebody else gave it to me, but 282 towns, cities, villages, plus scores. And just a little note here, like last year, so we're going to report some numbers on what we accomplished in last fiscal year. 113 towns received grant writing assistance from the RPCs. And really, we provide that supplemental staff that towns don't have, or often don't have, and so we help them out as much as we can. What is going on? Yeah, I'm so sorry. All right, so governance, accountability piece. So municipalities, towns all appoint our board members. So we work for a board. The boards approve a board of municipalities. The boards approve our budgets, set policy, program priorities, including regional plans. There are executive committees for each RPC, and that's who, like, I report to my executive committee. They're the ones who have oversight and do my annual reviews, et cetera. And then each RPC has committees that often does a lot of the different work where maybe different people from the towns are involved in transportation, working on a regional plan, clean water, brownfield, et cetera. Now we're starting to roll. Okay. Funding. So we don't have general tax revenue, we are not counties in other states. So all of our revenue comes from state or federal grants, with probably, I think the last time we did this math, it was like 5 to 7% of our budgets come from municipal dues. So we do get some amount of dues, but it's a small portion. And we operate, we kind of use the term public sector consulting staff almost, because we're really working on performance grants. If we're not doing a good job, the agency is going to be like, hey, we're not going to want to pay you for doing that work. So we're working for member towns, but also state agencies. So if you task an agency to do something that involves municipalities, the agency is often contracting with us to reach out and engage all of the towns. And every hour of our work gets billed to some specific agreement. Again, back to this, we don't have any general revenue. Everything is performance contracts that we're working on. And just this graphic is supposed to give you a little sense of like all these different grant funders. And not all of these do each of us get money from each year, but there are some that are consistent. ACCD, with our regional planning grant, comes through that agency. And apologies for all the acronyms here. Please raise your hand if you want me to spell something out. VTrans, all the RPCs have annual grants with VTrans to do transportation planning work. With ANR, we have basin planning, water quality grants that we work on, emergency management. And then the other ones are kind of can come and go depending. So the Agency of Administration, like we've been doing the Municipal Technical Assistance Program that got started last year. We've been working with them on that. Building and General Services was the Municipal Energy
Resilience program.
Thank you. Energy work through BTS that the legislature approved a year or two ago. Public safety, health department. Then there's federal agencies also. The US, sorry, the typo there. Agricultural department, mostly rural development. The Economic Development Administration. The Environmental Protection Agency, which is where brownfield money comes from. USDOT, Northern Borders Regional Commission. So anyway, it's fun stuff. Yes.
Question. I just have a quick question. Town dues, are they the same for every town, or is it based on size, population?
I think I can say every RPC now has some, more of a formula.
Okay.
More dependent on size. I think there was one RPC that maybe had a flat fee, but they just changed that in the last year or so.
Can you, I do have a question. Can you give us a sense of what we're talking about? Like each of the three of you, what's your total annual budget? Christian, I mean.
Yeah, annual budget. It's, I mean, it's a little hard to say because a big portion of our budget might be more like pass through the contractors to.
Right.
Work for us. I think we were about 2.1 last year and of them were 86.
Yeah, my operating budget's about 3.3 million.
Okay.
And then there's a several million that actually pass through us.
My operating budget is around 3 million and our municipal dues are approaching $75,000.
I asked that just to give members of the committee an order of magnitude idea.
And what's really, what I always tell the towns is, if you look at our overall budget and you see that number, because we do call it out in our budget, it's a small percent, but it's among the most valuable funding that we get, because as Charlie noted, everything we do is performance-based, and most of these grants listed here require some form of match of non-federal or non-state dollars. So those municipal dollars allow us to leverage the funding to bring us up to that $3 billion worth of services for our communities and the state.
This one is just making, because we're involved in so much stuff, I'll call it, across the state, that the state government's working on. We do provide that on the ground expertise on town and state issue or town and regional issues to the state as you're working on policy. So feel free to call upon us. We're not experts in everything, but we can at least provide some perspectives on what we're seeing as we're working with our towns on different issues. We often get volunteered to serve on different boards or committees that the state is setting up to work on different issues. That's definitely a part of our work also. Act 181, the 2024 housing Act 250 bill, which is Act 181, is in place now. Went into effect last summer. And so here's kind of just a quick status report from our point of view about what's happening. The interim exemptions have been in place. If I'm assuming these links work, if you go to to pull this up on the web. We are in the process, or we just actually finished providing guidance to all the RPCs and to says NRB. It's now the Land Use Review Board. So we've provided guidance on how to do our regional planning maps consistently. Just got developed. I should give credit to Catherine for all the work she put into that. And it's really part of what is happening with that as we're doing that work is it's really an effort to align town, regional, and state plans and permitting policy to support housing and job growth. So I'm hopeful over time we're starting to not have as many fights during the permitting process. And let's argue upstream a bit, let's argue about what should be exempt or not in those areas. But once we settle on the map, let's go. And we're on schedule for all 11 regional plans to be updated by the deadline, which is the end of 2026. And down below here, you see kind of the rough schedule. Don't take these timeframes exactly to the bank, but the northeastern, the kingdom is first in line. They're trying to probably go through this summer. Then these two RPCs are looking at getting their plans done later in the year. A bunch of us are probably next winter or spring, finishing our plans, and then a couple that will lag into the summer, fall of 2026. So this, there may be some conversations that come up about timelines on this stuff. From our point of view, we are on schedule and on track to follow through with what the legislation calls for us to do. Regional planning, and we are, a lot of this, we're trying to manage the, we're kind of the squishy part of the government between the state and the towns, right? We're trying to kind of make sure everything fits together. So we're coordinating town plans, doing research and studies for towns, and really providing that extra staffing. And point planning. Last year, we provided planning and bylaws to 188 towns. And there is, statutory language about, you get some benefits if you keep your town plan up to date. So we help towns a lot with that. And also to help with the permitting at both the state and town level. Just quick summary for you, 240 towns have municipal plans, 207 have zoning. 37 only have flood, so those are in addition to the 207 have zoning, but then another 37 also have floodplain bylaws. And only 17 municipalities have no bylaws. And getting to the point where I think I'm turning this over to, am I doing this slide? Or are you picking up? So, and a lot of the focus on the bylaw work has been around how to increase housing production, increasing density, updating zoning, and maybe some other programmatic things like just providing guidance to property owners on how to do accessory dwelling units or infill housing on their properties. And in particular here, we're kind of just noting the Rutland RPC produced a housing resource guide, and they kind of took a whole bunch of 50 different resources from 15 organizations and into one document. And they've been getting good feedback on that so far.
Could you let us know your impressions, I guess, the three of you? The 17 towns that have no bylaws, why? I'm sure there are various reasons, but I'd just like to, I'm not asking for numbers, just your impressions.
I can speak to the two in my region that don't have bylaws, and that is largely a philosophical decision to not want government control over what people do to their property, and not enough associated benefit that goes along with the work of overcoming that.
Yeah,
Do you guys not have any of those?
we don't have any with zero. We have a couple with just the floodplain, minimum safety standards, so they can qualify for the FEMA insurance.
I mean, they don't have zoning
They don't have
except
zone,
they have.
except for around the floodplain.
Why again? Is it the same kind of thing as philosophical?
Well, so it is philosophical. It's also the idea that they don't want to be bothered with then having to have to do that permit process and having that staff on hand to do it. And yeah, so we work with them to make sure they understood what they still have to do for the flood bylaws.
Very.
Since you mentioned Devin Neary, who's the regional planning commission, is in the building today. We had a meeting with him this morning. I live in Rutland City, but I know I had at one time lived in Rutland Town, and I know Rutland Town doesn't have zoning, so they're.
And a little more philosophical, like.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
When there's no zone, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, it's sad because they surround the city of Rutland like a donut, but they. No zoning, so.
So when someone wants to build something in a town with no zoning. Is it, they get a build, do they get a building permit? They just do it.
It depends. There might be some state permits that their particular development will capture, but they don't need any sort of building permit. We don't have building codes in the state, so.
Very few towns.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not like other states from that standpoint. And yeah, very few towns have building codes. Yeah, we have the state fire code. And so it is a different regulatory environment than other states. Do you want to pick up?
Sure. And so following up on the housing, there was obviously a ton of time in this building taken up last year on Act 181. But we also wanted to throw out a couple of suggestions, and these are not, official positions. They're simply ideas that have been suggested by other people we wanted to bring to your attention. And there are just three policy considerations related to housing. One of them being to make more funding and financing available to towns for the foundational infrastructure that supports housing. Funding that's available in simpler ways that won't get tied up potentially by NIMBY efforts, I think is really important. And then there are definitely folks who believe that more conversations need to happen around the risk of appeals and making some changes to the appeal capability, especially in these new areas that we're saying are planned for growth under Act 181 last year. And then finally, we think there's a real opportunity, and we've had this conversation about taking some time to take a look at some other state permits to make sure they are efficiently and effectively protecting what we want to protect without interfering with the growth and development that we know we need to happen for months. So we think there's a real opportunity there. And again, 3 things just for your consideration on an official ballot position by any means. And then we do a lot around economic and community development. We're a little different from the RDCs, and that the RDCs tend to be very, particular business to business focused. Regional Development Corporation, where they work with the businesses one-on-one and grow the businesses. The work that we do is to build the foundation to make sure those businesses have the opportunity to be successful. So if there's a great example here with NBDA that's talked about with the town of Albany, a small town in the Northeast Kingdom. There were a bunch of steps that NBDA did that eventually
NBDA is
Northeastern Vermont Development Association. So that's the Regional Planning Commission in the Kingdom. There are a bunch of steps that they helped the town with to get to the point, starting with a town plan, utilizing the state's designation and incentive program for development in downtowns, and then a revolving loan fund an assessment grant for brownfields to clean up contaminated soils, tax credits. And they built this whole system through working one-on-one with the town of Albany so that they now have a new general store at that location, which is a vibrant community hub and makes the town an even better place for residents and businesses alike. And speaking of brownfields are properties that either are or are perceived to be contaminated by different pollutants. Statewide, regional planning commissions have assessment grants, many of which we've gotten directly from the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, so that we're able to provide assessment of those properties without any cost to the property owners. And that's been a huge benefit. A few RPCs also have revolving loan funds for cleanup. We have one at Northwest Regional Planning Commission. NVDA has one in the Kingdom, and Wyndham Regional has one in the southern part of the state. We work across the state. Yep.
Yeah, I was just curious, that assessment of, is that just like a soils thing, or is that like building structures?
It's both. Yeah, so it
So
can be
like doing
soils,
like
it can be,
lead
lead and asbestos.
Okay.
It can be animal waste sometimes, depending upon, how dilapidated the building might be.
Yep.
So it runs the full gamut, and sometimes it results in a building having to come down, sometimes it's remediated and rebuilt, and everything is great. And there's another great example from the Northeastern Vermont Development Association related to the cleanup of an industrial site to create new housing, which is going to be 30 to 35 new housing units as a result of this brownfields work. Regional planning commissions are also involved in transportation planning and project development and project management. We work directly with the Agency of Transportation and our municipalities. We do everything from traffic counts and culvert inventories on local roads to working with the Agency of Transportation on, miles long corridor studies to figure out what's the best way to manage this particular road corridor. The other thing we do that's been really fun is we do work with the state to manage the state's rail trails. There's in the Northwest region, we have two. We have a 26-mile rail trail from St. Albans to Richford, and then we have part of the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, which runs from St. Johnsbury to Swanton. And we have long managed the Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail, and now we've added the Lamoille to our portfolio. Did this great fun project doing a new interactive trail map that helps to drive tourism to those trails and also support the businesses. So if you're planning a trip out on the trail, you can look at this interactive map and know where to go to support the businesses along the trail. So that's a really fun project. And then clean water. Do you want to take one?
Take one.
All right.
We have 204 towns who took steps to improve water quality with the FY24 using assistance from the RPCs. We work with a municipal permit. Sorry, municipal roads general permit and the grants and aid program to help towns get funding for those projects to improve water quality along town roads that are connected into a waterway. And one of our fun examples, although I think this is true for all the RPCs that are also serving as clean water service providers. And as that program grows rapidly, ACRPC, this is Addison County, working with these DEC funding to reduce 14.6 kilograms of phosphorus entering into the Champlain Basin on an annual basis. So we're going to also see the results of those programs come to fruition. That's kind of exciting too.
No, I'm just saying.
So emergency planning and response is also one of our regular and annual funding sources through EM. Our planners work with the state during an emergency service liaisons, gathering data directly from the municipalities, contacting each municipality in the affected area following the event. And then in the weeks following the response, moving into the recovery, we are also consistently present throughout that process. So looking at Central Vermont right now, we're still working closely with Barry, who's affected 2 years in a row. Plainfield, as it begins to think of its next step
It
forward.
would help if you gave it. Could you bring this down to a specific level? Let's take Plainfield.
Sure.
Exactly what did you guys do
So
after that? The huge flood this summer.
right, so flood was on a Monday, so on Tuesday morning, we were talking with the emergency management director or select board members, trying to figure out where the damage was, if life was still at risk, what kind of damages they were observing in their municipality. We were conveying that information directly to Vermont Emergency Management so they can then deploy the resources to help those individuals or be in touch with those municipalities that have the most acute need. On Saturday following the event, when things were still chaos and the town was trying to respond but had no direction, our emergency management planner organized, I wouldn't call it a roundtable or workshop, but a field trip with some other emergency management planners from other municipalities, specifically Barry City, that experience, who could walk through the municipality with the local governing body and planners and say, okay, this is what you need to expect. These are the steps you need to be taking to make sure you can fully benefit from the FEMA reimbursements that are coming down the line. And then, so that's the most acute need. Since then, we've been working on zoning, helping with zoning reform as they look at moving their village out of the floodplain or parts of their village out of the floodplain. We've helped with buyouts and data collection. And I imagine we'll continue to work with them on a planning level for years to come.
Representative Burrows.
Is that, thank you, is that driven by internally developed plan? Or is it driven by statute?
Which part?
Well,
Flood response or the
emergency planning?
emergency planning?
Yes, yeah, I don't know.
So the emergency planning, our role in emergency planning is done through agreement with Vermont Emergency Management. It's not officially part of Vermont statute, although I think one of our colleagues has developed some legislative language to codify that. So we do it through specific agreement with the Vermont Emergency Management. Some of the work that Christian noted, that like the ongoing zoning work, the hazard mitigation, and long-term recovery work that his agency is doing, we finagle and find and search funding sources to cover the work under that.
One of the things that has been tremendously frustrating where I live is that we have not been able to get the RPC either before it merged or now to help find funding to create emergency shelters. And nobody at our town government has any idea how to do that, and I just don't have time. But I don't understand why the RPCs don't help with that, or at least give direction on where to look or anything at all. But I would think that would be part of emergency planning. That's kind of important.
You want to take that? You want to take that? We could tell, oh my gosh, we could talk for
Yeah.
hours about the
There's a lot
challenges
to
we're
unpack there.
sheltering right now. It's part of the issue is that it's emergency response for people, an emergency response for things. In the state of Vermont, it's bifurcated. Emergency response for people is the responsibility of the Agency of Human Services, and emergency response for things is the responsibility of Vermont Emergency Management.
Unless it's transportation, then it's V-Trans.
Then it's V-Trans, but that's part.
Thank you
of-
for that. I appreciate that.
Listen, we're out of time,
Yeah.
but thank you. And the impression, we understand you are entrepreneurs. You act when you can find a client,
Yeah, and well, we have lots of clients.
And
And just, we have,
paying client.
and Mr. Charles, just real quickly, we also do GIS mapping, energy planning, and we are involved in a lot of partnerships to get our work done, so.
we're happy
I'll finish
to come back
this.
anytime for any specific issue.
Probably will have you back in one form or another. And thank you so much.
More than once.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Appreciate your work.
Same.
Really frustrating is that
Well, now we're gonna hear from our JFO and our ledge council.
they didn't, they just said we don't do that.
Are you gonna testify? Yeah.
These days getting rid of things.
Well, it's just so unnecessary.
Yes, it is.
I'm sure.
Well, unfortunately, we have about 10 minutes, maybe 11. So keep that in mind, but you think you guys know everybody on this committee? Or should we, why don't we introduce ourselves?
Hello, all. Again, Ashley Bartley, Fairfax in Georgia.
Leonora Dodge, Essex Town and Essex Junction. Nice to see one of my neighbors.
Joe Parsons, Newbury, Thompson, Groton.
I'm Charlton, Athens, Chester, Grafton, Wyndham.
Debbie Dolgan, St. Johnsbury, Kirby, and Concord.
Cal Pezzo, Chittenden 20, Colchester.
Mary Howard, Rutland City, District 6.
Elizabeth Burrows, Windsor 1, which is Heartland, West Windsor, and Windsor.
Saudi Lamont, Lamoille, Washington, Morristown, Elmore, Worcester, Woodbury, Small Parkston.
Emily Krasnow sits here. I'm Mark Holly, Plainfield, Marshfield, Callis. So
How many times have you all done that?
if you want to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about whatever you want to tell us in the next 10 minutes.
Sure, and if there's anything specific you want to know from us, let us know. I
I'll
know,
be more time.
I know Cameron and I were both here when you all introduced yourselves last week, which was really helpful. I'm Sophie Zadatny. I'm handling the labor and employment portfolio for the Office of Legislative Counsel. I also have military affairs, veterans, Native Americans, and I think that's it. Every once in a while, something else pops up. So I will, I'm sure, be in front of this committee a fair amount. I started in the position in October. My background historically has been in labor and employment law. So this is kind of a return to my roots.
Sophie also had a stint as chancellor of the Vermont State Colleges, which she actually had to help negotiate labor agreements.
Bring back from the brink. So I was associate general counsel and then general counsel and then chancellor for 4 years. So I was 10 years with the Vermont State College system immediately prior to this. So this is my return to my background.
Good afternoon, Cameron Wood, Office of Legislative Counsel. My portfolio will be housing, some consumer protection items, and then retirements and pensions. So I will gladly be spending a lot of time with you all this biennium, in anything related to housing. I do not cover a lot of the Act 250 items. So if it's a land use regulation, that is typically managed by another member on our team. But, I don't want to hesitate anyone from coming to reach out or ask any questions. feel free. We can always direct you to someone else if it's someone else's, expertise or portfolio area. So, always feel free if it's a housing related matter to come and ask, and we'll sort it out on our side. Just say very quickly, if I use sir or ma'am, please forgive me. I am originally from Alabama. And grew up there for most of my life. I was having this conversation with the chair just yesterday. So I've been in Vermont now for 11 years, though. I've enjoyed every minute of it, and really have kind of fallen in love with the place. I started my career at Legislative Council as a clerk for 2 sessions, but that was 9 and 10 years ago. And for the past 9 years, I've been at the Department of Labor. And this is my 3rd week on the job, so I'm now the junior member of the Ledge Council team. Housing's not my area of expertise, so I have kind of neither are the other areas of my portfolio. So I'm trying to be as transparent as I can with you all, our clients, as you do your important work. It is a steep learning curve, but I intend to do my best and give you 110% of my efforts in getting up to speed. But there could be a lot of things that I just need to learn or research or learn from you all. I know there's a lot of members on this committee that were here last biennium. So I know you all probably have a little bit of expertise that I'll be learning from you. So really looking forward to it.
I'm Pat. I'm with the Joint Fiscal Office. So they're doing the words. I'm helping you all with the numbers. So my primary portfolio covers tax policy, so I'm very involved in personal income taxes and corporate income taxes. So in some ways I have a very narrow portfolio, but in other ways very broad, and that broadness is what brings me to you all. Because I also cover topics related to, so I wrote the basic needs budget this year. Last I checked, it hadn't been posted on the General Assembly website, but I'm waiting for them to do so. It's posted on your website because Magali is very quick. So yeah, workers' comp basic needs. I cover unemployment insurance for our office. So I've worked with Cam quite a bit in the past, and I know him to be very meticulous and very forthcoming with all his information. So I think you'll be well served by him, despite his reservations and caveats he gave you. Importantly, housing. I also cover housing. So sort of my role with you all. My role often with this committee is to kind of help as a liaison between you and our budget team. So helping you figure out what's available for certain initiatives or policy avenues that you want to go down. And I can help you with that. I see you're being called, so I'll just throw out, actually born and raised in Elmore. My parents still live there in their home. Yeah, this will be my 4th session with you all. So I see several familiar faces, but some new ones to the new ones.
Yeah, there are five of us are new,
Yeah.
6 of us are old veterans, right?
And for the rest of you, good to see you again.
Quick question, are you, so for example, one of the areas of concerns is we keep hearing is new ways to pay for infrastructure. And some of that would involve TIF reform. Some of it might involve the way we authorize special assessments. Do you work on that?
So you're perfectly implicating my coworker, Ted Barnett, who is busy right now, so couldn't make it, but he's our person. And actually, you're reminding me, he wrote a report a year or 2 ago about financing for public infrastructure. So I can send that report to Magali and share it with you.
Thank you.
But yeah, so things like TIF would be Ed, who's also in our office, is also a senior fiscal analyst.
Magali, have they been invited for our planning meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
well, I was going to confirm with you, but yes, I'll send the invite to.
We have our chair, vice chair, and our ranking member, and Magali sit on Thursday mornings briefly, and it's not closed by any means, to just talk about who we're going to hear from in the coming week and what the issues are. And the 3 of you are invited to this planning meeting, so it'll be at 8:15. And
Yeah,
thus,
early.
we're not intending to exclude anybody, which it's the mechanics of who comes next. Well, we had Molly Moore stick her head in, telling us that we better mock Schnell. So thank you very much for a quick appearance, and I know we're gonna see a lot more of you, and thanks in anticipation for all the work you're doing. Members of the committee, tomorrow, our first hearing is at 9 o'clock. We have the security briefing, which will not be live streamed. If you can,
And equity just.
I appreciate your being here. I think we all ought to hear that. And then we have testimony going from there. So thank you.